Amina was only 13, yet life had already shown her its harshest side. Each night she curled up under a broken bus shelter in Nairobi, using torn cardboard as her bed. The cold crept into her bones, but she tried to ignore it. Every morning she walked the busy streets, holding out her small hand to strangers, hoping for a coin or a scrap of food. Most people passed her by without a glance, as though she was invisible. Yet despite her hunger and loneliness, Amina's heart remained gentle. She never grew bitter, never cursed her fate. She often shared what little she found with other homeless children, even if it meant she went to sleep with an empty stomach. Her biggest treasure was her smile, though few noticed it. Some nights, she stared at the stars above the noisy city, whispering to herself that tomorrow would be better. Deep inside, she believed kindness had a way of returning, even if the world seemed blind to her pain. One particular night, as the wind rattled through the rusted shelter, Amina lay down, hugging her thin arms around herself. She had not eaten all day except for a stale piece of bread she had saved. Hunger gnawed at her belly, but she forced her eyes shut, trying to rest. Just as she drifted into half-sleep, a faint sound reached her ears. It was soft at first, almost hidden beneath the noise of passing cars and distant chatter. A whimper. She sat up, her heart quickening. The sound came again, clearer this time, a cry from somewhere in the shadows of the alley nearby. For a moment, fear held her still. The night was dark, and the city streets were full of dangers. Yet something inside her pushed her forward. She rose slowly, her bare feet brushing the rough pavement. Clutching the piece of bread tightly, she followed the sound. With each step, the whimper grew louder, trembling and filled with pain. Amina's chest tightened as she turned into the narrow alley. What she saw waiting there would change her life forever. In the shadows of the narrow alley, Amina's eyes widened when she saw the source of the cry. A small stray dog lay on the ground, trembling in pain. Its thin body was covered in dust, and its leg was bleeding from a deep wound. The poor creature struggled to move but could barely lift its head. People walked past the alley without a glance, some even quickening their steps, not wanting to be bothered by a dirty, injured animal. But Amina could not look away. Her heart ached at the sight. She knelt beside the dog, her hands shaking as she reached out gently. "Shoo, it's okay," she whispered, her voice soft and soothing. The dog whimpered again but did not pull away, as though it sensed her kindness. Amina looked around desperately, searching for something to help, but she had nothing, only the faded scarf wrapped around her shoulders, her only shield against the night cold. Without a second thought, she pulled it off. Tearing it into strips with her small hands, she carefully wrapped the cloth around the dog's leg, pressing it firmly to stop the bleeding. Her stomach growled, reminding her of the stale bread tucked inside her pocket. It was the only food she had saved all day, meant for her own empty stomach. She pulled it out, staring at it for a long moment. Then she broke it gently into pieces and placed it in front of the dog. "Here, you need it more than me," she said softly. The animal sniffed the bread and began to eat, its eyes glistening with gratitude. Amina stroked its matted fur, whispering comfort as though the dog were a lost friend. "You're not alone anymore," she murmured. In that cold alley, hunger gnawed at her, but she felt strangely full, because for the first time in a long while, she had given love to something more helpless than herself. Little did she know, this act of kindness, hidden in the darkness, was about to change her destiny forever. A few meters away from the alley, a black car sat quietly with its engine off. Inside, a man in his late 50s watched the world through tinted windows. His name was Mr. Kofi, a billionaire entrepreneur known for his towering businesses, yet tonight he wasn't dressed in fine suits or surrounded by bodyguards. Instead, he wore plain clothes and a cap pulled low over his face. For years, he had made it his habit to drive through the city at night, studying how the poor survived. He believed that to truly help, one had to see life as it really was, not through polished reports or numbers on paper. That night, his eyes were drawn to the small figure moving into the alley. He raised his phone and began recording, curious. What he saw made his chest tighten. Through the glow of the dim streetlight, he captured the sight of a little girl tearing her scarf into strips to save an injured dog. She pressed the cloth gently against its wound, whispering words of comfort. When she reached into her pocket and offered the bread she had saved for herself, his grip on the phone trembled. This was no act for attention, no audience, no expectation of reward. Just a child, forgotten by society, giving everything she had to a stray animal in need. Mr. Kofi leaned back in his seat, his throat tightening as he replayed the scene on his screen. He had seen people with millions walk past suffering without a second glance, yet here was a girl with nothing, offering all she owned. He felt humbled, even ashamed of how much the world had ignored children like her. As he sat there in silence, he knew this moment was more than just a recording. It was a message, a mirror to humanity. And deep inside, he felt a stirring he hadn't felt in years, the urge to act. The night grew colder as the city lights dimmed and the streets grew quiet. Amina walked slowly back to the broken bus shelter she called home, the injured dog limping faithfully beside her. She had nothing left to eat, her stomach twisting with hunger, but she did not regret giving away her last piece of bread. For the first time in days, she felt a strange warmth inside her, the kind that came from knowing she had eased another's pain. She laid down on the rough concrete, pulling the dog close to her chest. Its body was weak, but its tail thumped softly against the ground as though it understood her sacrifice. Amina stroked its fur gently, whispering, "Don't worry, we'll be okay." Her voice was tired, her body shivering, but her heart was calm. She closed her eyes, ignoring the ache in her stomach, and drifted into a restless sleep with the dog nestled safely in her arms. Not far away, in the comfort of his car, Mr. Kofi sat still, replaying the video again and again. Each time he watched, he noticed details he had missed, the way the girl's hands trembled as she tore her only scarf, the quiet determination in her eyes, the tenderness in her voice as she comforted the dog. He had seen countless acts of charity staged for cameras, but this was different. This was real. The billionaire leaned back, staring out the window at the sleeping city. He thought of his own childhood, the struggles his mother once endured before he built his empire. His heart, usually hardened by business deals and endless meetings, now softened in a way he could not explain. In that moment, he realized this little girl had given him something far more valuable than money could buy. She had reminded him of the true meaning of humanity. And though Amina slept unaware, her story was just beginning to awaken in the heart of a man who could change everything. As the sun rose over Nairobi, the city buzzed with its usual chaos, cars honking, vendors shouting, and people rushing to work. In the middle of it all, Amina woke up under her broken shelter, brushing the dust from her clothes. She stretched her thin arms and looked down at the dog curled beside her. Despite the hunger gnawing at her stomach, she smiled and patted its head. To her, it was just another day of survival. Another day to beg for scraps and hope for kindness. She had no idea the world beyond her street was about to speak her name. Meanwhile, in a quiet office, Mr. Kofi sat with his media team. Without revealing his identity, he forwarded the video of Amina and the dog. "Share this story," he instructed simply, "let the world see real humanity." Within minutes, the clip was uploaded to several platforms. By the first hour, a few hundred people had watched. By the second hour, it had crossed thousands. By midday, it exploded. Millions of viewers from different countries shared the video, praising the little girl who had nothing yet gave everything. Comments poured in, "This is the purest kindness I've ever seen. We complain with full plates, while this child gives away her only food." Hashtags trended, news channels picked it up, and talk shows replayed the clip, calling her the girl with the golden heart. But while the world wept, clapped, and admired her, Amina remained unaware. She walked barefoot through the city, hand outstretched for a coin, stopping to share a smile with strangers who barely noticed her. She drank from a roadside tap, her dog beside her, wagging its tail as though everything was normal. She had no phone, no internet, no idea that overnight she had become a symbol of compassion. To her, life was the same, hungry, uncertain, and invisible. Yet to millions watching her video, she was already a hero. And in the silence of her struggle, the spark she lit in one dark alley was now setting the world on fire. By the next morning, the city was buzzing with whispers. The video of the girl and the dog had reached nearly every home, office, and market stall. Newspapers printed still images from the clip with bold headlines, "Who is she?" Television reporters replayed the footage on loop, marveling at her selflessness. Radio stations discussed her story, calling her the forgotten angel of Nairobi. Everyone wanted to know the identity of the girl who had touched millions of hearts. Social workers and charity organizations poured into the streets, determined to find her. Journalists with cameras walked through alleys and bus stops, asking street children if they had seen the girl with the scarf and the injured dog. Some claimed she lived near the bus station, others said she slept by the market. Crowds began speculating, each person offering a different story. Some said she was an orphan, others insisted she must have run away from home. Meanwhile, Amina remained hidden in plain sight. She walked the same streets she always did, holding out her hand for coins, her dog limping faithfully beside her. People glanced at her but didn't connect her to the viral girl. She had no way of knowing the world was looking for her. To her, the attention belonged somewhere far away, not to the hungry child clutching a stray dog. At night, she returned to her broken bus shelter, curling up beside her furry companion. Around her, conversations about the video echoed in the air. Vendors argued about the mystery girl, drivers shared theories, children imitated her kindness. Amina listened quietly, her face hidden in the shadows, never realizing they were speaking about her. The city was desperate to uncover the girl who had moved millions. Yet the little heroine they searched for continued her life of silence and struggle, unseen among the forgotten. She was already famous to the world, but still invisible to those passing right by her. The afternoon sun beat down harshly as Amina stood near a petrol station, her small hand stretched toward drivers in hope of a coin or a piece of food. Some ignored her, some waved her away, and a few tossed loose change onto the ground without even meeting her eyes. Beside her, the dog sat quietly, its bandaged leg slowly healing, its tail wagging whenever someone looked their way. For Amina, it was just another long day of begging, another day of trying to survive. But she didn't notice a white van pull up near the pumps, marked with the logo of a local charity foundation. Inside were volunteers who had spent days searching for the mysterious girl from the viral video. One of them glanced out the window and froze. "That's the dog," she whispered urgently. "The same injured dog from the clip." The group stepped out quickly and walked toward Amina. She noticed them coming and felt her chest tighten. Strangers rarely approached her kindly, and she was used to being chased away from places. One of the volunteers crouched down gently, smiling at her. "Is this your dog?" he asked softly. "Were you the one who helped him that night?" Amina's eyes widened. Her heart pounded as panic surged through her. Had she done something wrong? Was she in trouble for feeding the dog or for using her scarf? She clutched the animal protectively and shook her head at first, fear clouding her face. The volunteers exchanged glances, their smiles patient and warm. "Don't be afraid," another said gently. "We've been looking for you because of something good. You're the girl from the video, aren't you?" Amina froze, torn between fear and confusion. She had no idea how her quiet act in a dark alley had traveled so far. Holding the dog closer, she whispered, "Why are you asking me this?" And in that moment, her hidden story was about to step into the light. The volunteers led Amina and her dog into a quiet building far from the noise of the city. She had never stepped into a place so clean, with polished floors and cool air that smelled faintly of flowers. Her bare feet felt strange against the smooth tiles, and her heart raced with uncertainty. She clutched the dog tightly, afraid someone might take it away. The volunteers guided her into a private office and told her to wait. Moments later, the door opened, and a tall man entered. He wore a simple suit, but there was something commanding in the way he carried himself. Amina blinked, her breath catching in her throat. She recognized him instantly, the man who had been sitting in the car that night, watching from the shadows. Her eyes widened, and for a moment she could not move. The man gave her a gentle smile. "You may not know me," he said softly, "but I know you, Amina." He gestured to the chair, inviting her to sit. She lowered herself slowly, still clutching the dog, her small hands trembling. "I was there the night you saved this animal," the man continued. "I saw everything. I filmed it. And the world has now seen what I saw." Amina's mouth opened slightly, stunned. She whispered, You were watching?" Mr. Kofi nodded. "Yes. And I must thank you. You reminded me, and millions of others, what true humanity looks like. When you had nothing, you gave everything. That is the greatest lesson of all." Tears welled in Amina's eyes as she tried to understand his words. For so long she had been invisible, a shadow in the streets. And now, here was a powerful man, speaking to her with respect, gratitude, and warmth. For the first time in her life, she felt seen. Mr. Kofi leaned forward, his eyes studying the thin girl sitting nervously before him. He wanted to be sure she was as genuine as the world believed. With a calm voice, he asked, "Amina, if I were to give you money right now, what would you do with it?" The question startled her. She lowered her gaze to the floor, her fingers tightening around the dog's fur. Money was something she had dreamed of, yet it felt distant, almost unreal. After a long pause, she whispered, "I don't need money, sir." Mr. Kofi raised his brows, waiting. Amina continued softly, her voice trembling but sincere. "All I want is a little food. A place where I can sleep without being cold or chased away. And medicine for my dog, so he doesn't hurt anymore." She lifted her eyes for a brief second, then quickly looked down again. Her answer pierced through the silence of the office. She had asked nothing for herself beyond survival, no riches, no luxuries, no sudden escape from hardship. Her only concern stretched beyond her own hunger to the wounded animal beside her. Mr. Kofi felt his chest tighten. He had expected maybe hesitation, maybe a request for coins or comfort. Instead, what he heard confirmed what his heart already knew. This girl was not driven by greed. She was pure, humble, and selfless, even in her deepest struggle. He leaned back, nodding slowly, a small smile breaking across his face. "You have just shown me the truth, Amina," he said warmly. "The world saw your kindness in that video, but today, I see your heart. And I cannot let a heart like yours remain in the shadows." Amina blinked, confused but curious. She had no idea that her answer had just sealed her destiny. Mr. Kofi took a deep breath, his eyes softening as he looked at the frail girl before him. He could see the confusion on Amina's face, the disbelief that someone so powerful was even listening to her. He folded his hands on the desk and spoke slowly, making sure she heard every word. "Amina," he began gently, "you will not sleep on the streets again. From today, you will have a home of your own. A place warm, safe, and filled with food." Her eyes widened, her lips parting in shock, but he continued. "You will go to school, wear a neat uniform, and learn like every other child. I will personally sponsor your education for as long as you wish to study." Amina blinked rapidly, struggling to process the words. She had dreamed of a classroom only in passing, watching other children walk to school while she begged by the roadside. The idea that she could sit at a desk, hold a pencil, and be called by name felt almost impossible. "And there is more," Mr. Kofi added, leaning forward. "Because of your kindness, I will build a rescue center, for children like you who have no home, and for animals like the one you saved. And it will carry your name, Amina. So the world never forgets that it was your heart that inspired it." At that, tears spilled freely down her cheeks. She covered her mouth with one hand, the other clinging tightly to her dog as though afraid she might wake up and find it all a dream. "Me?" she whispered. "You're doing this, for me?" Mr. Kofi smiled and nodded. "Yes, for you. Because the world needs more hearts like yours." In that moment, Amina's life shifted forever. The girl once invisible to the world now sat on the edge of a destiny she never imagined. Weeks passed, and Amina's world looked nothing like the broken bus shelter she once called home. She now woke up in a warm bed, wrapped in soft blankets, sunlight streaming gently through curtains instead of harsh street lights. Her small room held books neatly stacked on a desk, a schoolbag by the chair, and a pair of polished shoes waiting for her. For the first time in her life, she belonged to a space that was hers, a place where no one would chase her away. Each morning she dressed in a clean school uniform, crisp white shirt, navy skirt, and neatly tied tie. She would stand in front of the mirror, hardly recognizing herself. The girl staring back was no longer invisible, no longer the child people ignored on the streets. She was Amina, a student with a future. Her dog, once limping and weak, now ran happily around the compound, its coat clean and shiny, its wound fully healed. It followed her to the gate each morning, wagging its tail proudly as though it knew she was no longer lost. At school, Amina sat at a desk among other children, holding a pencil with trembling excitement. She listened eagerly to lessons, her eyes wide with hunger for knowledge instead of food. Teachers noticed her determination, and classmates admired her quiet strength. Every page she filled in her notebook felt like a step away from the shadows of the past and closer to a bright tomorrow. In the evenings, she returned to her new home, where meals waited on the table and the dog curled at her feet. Sometimes she would pause by the window, looking out at the streets she once walked, her heart swelling with gratitude. The girl who once begged for scraps was now studying with hope, her life transformed by kindness and a chance she never expected. One cool evening, months after her life had changed, Amina returned to the very streets where her story had begun. The same broken bus shelter still stood, the same cracked pavements where she once laid her head. But this time, she didn't come as a hungry, forgotten child. She came carrying bags filled with food, blankets, and warm clothes. Her once empty hands now held gifts of hope. Children huddled together in corners, their faces thin and tired, just as hers had once been. Amina walked toward them with a gentle smile, her healed dog trotting happily beside her. At first, the children looked at her with suspicion, unsure why a girl in a neat uniform was approaching. But when she opened her bag and began handing out packets of food and folded blankets, their eyes lit up with joy. "Here," she said softly, pressing bread into the hands of a little boy. "Eat, you don't have to be hungry tonight." She wrapped a blanket around a shivering girl, whispering, "You deserve warmth. For each child she touched, she gave not only supplies but also comfort, speaking the words she had once longed to hear. As she worked, memories of her own cold nights came rushing back. She knew exactly how it felt to be ignored, invisible, forgotten. And that was why she promised herself she would never forget them. Passers-by paused to watch the scene, recognizing the girl who had once been just another face on the streets. Now she was a symbol of compassion, a reminder that true change begins with kindness. Standing by the bus shelter, Amina looked up at the night sky, tears glistening in her eyes. She whispered to herself, because true kindness shines brightest when no one is watching, yet it can light up the whole world when someone is.